Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Games, and I'm here today to talk about how does humans beat Hogaak. That's right, Hogaak is the menace of the modern game meta in Magic right now. It puts out a giant 8/8 trampler on turn 2 and destroys most decks. What's really unfortunate though is it's not just Hogaak. While Hogaak does come down just by loading up the graveyard and using Delve to bring it out for a mere 2, perhaps even more menacing can be Vengevine, who repeatedly comes back. All your opponent has to do is cast 2 creatures, say a Stitcher and a Gravecrawler, boom, 3 Vengevines come back out of the graveyard and destroy you. You kill 2 of them, then next turn they come back. Okay, so we know that Hogaak is the menace, but I've seen a lot of articles written recently and a bunch of statistics that say our beloved humans is actually a good matchup for Hogaak. And what's cool is from my own personal data, I can actually vouch for this. I am exclusively a humans player, and I've played Hogaak a whole bunch of times, and it's by no means an auto win for humans. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to stand here and be like, humans is the answer, the death knell for Hogaak. No. But I've had about maybe 55, 53% win rate against Hogaak, which is pretty darn good against what is statistically the very best deck in the meta by a very wide margin. So let's go ahead and talk about how Hogaak falls to humans, or what humans can do to beat Hogaak. What's interesting about this is that what it is not is the normal humans approach, right? The normal humans game plan is like, play Noble Hierarch on turn 1. Then go ahead and on turn 2, play a Mantis Rider. Like, that's all amazing. But that's not actually the best way for humans to beat Hogaak. That's great for putting pressure on, and the way to beat Hogaak is a twofold plan. First, you have to put pressure on, but secondly, you have to be able to handle Hogaak. The 3 key cards to me for handling Hogaak, game 1 that is. And by the way, game 1 is bad. I'm not saying you're going to win most game 1s, but what you want to do is be able to name Meddling Mage on turn 2 on the play, especially for Hogaak. And if you can't, you need to be able to send him back with Reflector Mage. Now, what makes this so impossibly hard for game 1 is that you're not normally going to keep a hand that's something like 3 lands, we'll say 4 lands, a Lieutenant, a Meddling Mage, and a Reflector Mage. That is a terrible hand in any other matchup. In this matchup, that's not the worst. It's not great, but certainly if you had to keep 6, you might be tempted to keep that because it does have the answers you're looking for. It doesn't put a lot of pressure on, but at least it handles Hogaak. But the point is, it's really hard to come up with a hand that has Meddling Mage in it and Reflector Mage that you're going to mull for, because that's not our normal plan. That's not the humans' normal plan. So that's why game 1 is so challenging. But what our goal is to do is to name Meddling Mage on Hogaak or send him back with Reflector Mage. And then the third piece of the puzzle that is so critical is Deputy of Detention to handle, no, not Hogaak, to handle Vengevines, because Vengevines become the real problem. Because if we look at this, we have plenty of ways to handle Hogaak. Between Deputy and Reflector Mage, we have a pile of Hogaak answers, but what we don't have is Vengevine answers. So we really need to have Deputy. Now, there's an even bigger problem. A lot of humans players don't even play Deputy in the main deck. Instead, they're playing Bugler. I'm not going to say playing Militia Bugler in the main deck is wrong. Militia Bugler is an awesome card, and I've definitely used it in my main deck plenty. But I just find that the Deputy is so powerful against Hogaak that having 2 of them in my main board gives me much more game against Hogaak, even in game 1. Okay, so let's assume we're going to lose game 1. Game 1 is very tough against Hogaak. You can also win it just by going humans and being like, I'm on the play, turn 1 Noble, turn 2 Mantis Rider, turn 3 Copy Mantis Rider, turn 4 Lieutenant, ball game. Like, that could still actually get there sometimes, but game 1 is really tough. But our real answer and our real way to handle Hogaak is game 2, bringing in things like, I'm going to start with Auriok Champion. Auric Champion is not the card it is against Burn, where if you get an Auric Champion and copy it, you're kind of like, bye Burn, that was fun, I'm going to gain, 8 health and you can't kill me now. But what it does do is set you up in a situation where you can take a little more time to put stuff together. A turn 3 Reflector Mage on Hogaak taking 8 sounds a lot less punishing if you can gain 3 to 4 of that health back with an Auric Champion, and usually a lot more. If you get an Auric Champion and copy it, between all those Blood Gas coming back, the Vengevines repeatedly coming back, the in and out of the graveyard basically is going to give you a ton of health. I've gained like 25 health against Hogaak decks. I've also lost games where I've gained like 18 health. So let's be clear. Auric Champion does not win against Hogaak. It buys you time to be able to win. Okay. Another card that I found to be incredibly useful is Ravenous Trap. Now, I know most of you out there are probably going, Tiny, what are you doing? It's Leyline of the Void. Haven't you seen deck lists? It's Leyline of the Void. My problem with Leyline of the Void is that you are having to mull pretty deep to find it. And then when you do, you're not left with much in hand. And then worse than that is Hogaak players aren't just sitting there going, oh no, you Leyline me, ball game. No, the Leyline is destructive, but they've got tons of removal for Leyline. So yeah, Leyline's great. But I think Ravenous Trap is just much more flexible against the meta as a whole. And it's much harder for them, I feel like, to play around. If they want to get the Vengevines out, they're going to have to put them in the graveyard. And when they get 3 Vengevines in the graveyard, bam, Ravenous Trap, it's basically ball game. I've won a lot of games like that where I'm patient and I hit as many Vengevines as possible. But what's key to note is we already have answers for Hogaak. Remember, we have our Meddling Mage. We have our Reflector Mage. Ravenous Trap, if you can hit like a cool situation early where like they have a Hogaak in there and a bunch of stuff, that's cool. That can be really devastating and you may just win that game. But really, Ravenous Trap and Deputy are there for Vengevines. Those cards are going to cause you a lot of problem because we can't just chump block all day unless you get that, like I said, that ideal scenario where you get like a couple Mantis Riders and then you can chump block the Vengevines and get there. That can work as well. But I found more times than not, trying to set up that Ravenous Trap to hit the Vengevines and take care of them that way. I also put Bugler in post sideboard kind of for what I've already been talking about. The cards I think are most important are Deputies, our Reflector Mages, our Meddling Mages, and then probably Auric Champion to gain some health. And Bugler gets them all. And I know it's slow, right? Like going, okay, turn 2 Hogaak, turn 3 Bugler into turn 4 Reflector Mage. Like that sounds terrible, and I'm not saying that's the answer and that it wins games. I'm just saying that I think it's better than the alternatives, which are things like Thalia, who I take out, and I take out Freebooters for this matchup. And then I think I ended up taking out like an Ether Vial and a Lieutenant to squeeze in the 2 Buglers. It's possible that that's wrong. You'll have to test your own results. I find it to be quite useful. Okay, so the bottom line is to be able to beat Hogaak turns 2 and 3, you're wanting to, especially if you lose game 1, you really want to have, if possible, Meddling Mage on the play game 2, name Hogaak, really lock them out there, get a Deputy, don't waste it right away. Hold on to it. Hit 2 Vengevines, hit 3 Vengevines. It's not really worth it to hit 1 Vengevine unless your clock is enough. And remember, it's not just about disrupting them, right? You have to also be able to actually push through the win and have a bit of clock yourself, because all you're doing is sort of establishing speed bumps. Unless, of course, you get off that massive Ravenous Trap, and then you might just be able to win the game all on its own. All right, so this is part 1. I actually have part 2 coming as well, which is a video I'm going to upload where I actually play against Hogaak. Game 1, I got lucky, got there just doing human stuff. Game 2, I was actually able to keep a pretty dicey hand. The people watching the stream were not happy with my decision, but it was basically Meddling Mage and Reflector Mage, and I was able to put my plan into action. I was really patient with the trap, and ended up hitting just everything you could dream of. It was like the glorious golden trap. But that video will go up as well. Let me know if you liked the video, and I'll see you next time on Tiny Grimes Games.